Okay, I want you to try something for me. Just close your eyes for a second. Imagine the alarm goes off. It's morning. The room is filled with that gray, weak, early light.
Hmm.
And you have to get up. Maybe you have a big presentation or,
Yeah.
or plans with friends. Things that on paper you should be excited about. The day holds potential, right?
Yeah.
Theoretically. But as you're sort of coming back into your body, you don't feel potential. You just feel gravity. It's like gravity has been turned up to 11. There's this invisible, crushing weight pressing you down. You're exhausted, like deep in your bones. Even though you just slept for 8 hours, it feels like the world is happening behind a thick glass wall, and you're just stuck on the other side watching it.
That's a really visceral image.
Yeah.
And for a staggering number of people, that isn't just a bad morning. That's the baseline. That sensation of the heavy coat you can't take off, that's often the first silent signal that the landscape of the brain is shifting.
And that is exactly where we're going today. We're taking a deep dive into the whole landscape of depression. But I want to be really clear from the start. We aren't just here to, admire the problem. We've pulled together a stack of research clinical papers, personal narratives, nutritional studies to really understand the mechanics of this machine. We want to know how to grab the steering wheel when the car starts sliding on ice.
That is the perfect metaphor. And I think before we get into the how-tos, we need to draw a very distinct line in the sand.
Between sadness and depression.
Exactly, because we use them. I mean, we use them like synonyms in casual conversation, right? I'm so depressed about my football team losing,
Right.
but they're fundamentally different beasts.
Right. Sadness is usually a reaction. You get bad news, you feel sad. Cause and effect. It makes sense.
Precisely. Sadness is a natural human response to an event. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. But depression is a mood disorder. It's a dystopia that the mind creates and then convinces you is reality. It isn't just feeling down. It's a fundamental shift in how you process the entire world. I mean,
Wow.
You can be having a perfectly fine day, objectively sun's out, you're fine, and you can still be unable to leave the house because that internal story has just rewritten the script.
There's this incredible narrative thread from our source material that really stuck with me. It's about a protagonist, we'll call him that, who didn't even realize he was clinically depressed until he was 27. But when he looked back, the breadcrumbs were there since middle school.
That is so incredibly common, especially when it starts young. You just assume, this is who I am. I'm just a low-energy person.
Until
You don't have the words to identify it as a condition. You just think it's a personality trait.
what really hit me was this one specific detail. He looked back at a year of his life, a year where he felt really bitter, and he realized he smiled in exactly 0 photos.
Wow.
Not candid shots, not even the professional family portrait. He described it as a generalized clapback against the world, a silent protest.
That image of the unsmiling face in a sea of smiles it's haunting, but it's also diagnostic. It speaks to isolation. It's a defense mechanism. When the internal world feels chaotic or numb, the external expression it shuts down. It's a way of saying, I'm not part of this joy you're all performing. I'm opting out.
So let's unpack that, this opting out, because if we want to understand this dystopia, we have to understand what it actually feels like beyond just sadness. The research really highlights that it's a shapeshifter. It doesn't look the same for everyone.
It is. And the biggest misconception we need to shatter is that depression is purely mental. It is deeply, profoundly physical. If we look at the symptomatology, there's a huge overlap with physical pain pathways.
This was surprising to me. The sources mentioned that for a lot of people, the main symptom isn't crying, it's actual pain.
Exactly. Imagine the worst flu headache you've ever had. That throbbing pressure. Now imagine getting that every 2 weeks, just unpredictably. Or chronic back pain. Or nausea. The body is sounding an alarm, but because the control panel is broken, it comes out as physical distress. The brain and body aren't separate. When the brain hoots, the body keeps the score.
And then there's the thief of joy. The clinical term is anhedonia, but I think thief is better. Because it doesn't just make you sad, it steals the ability to be happy.
Anhedonia is a hallmark symptom. It's not just, I don't feel like going to the movies. It's, I could go to the movies, but I know I'll feel nothing when I get there. It's like trying to taste a gourmet meal with a severely burnt tongue. You know it should be good intellectually, but the sensory data just isn't getting through. The flavor is gone.
And that has to mess with your perception of time, right? I mean, we've all been bored, but this sounds like something totally different.
Oh, completely. Think about when you're in a flow state. You're engaged, happy, time vanishes. 5 hours feel like 5 minutes. And hedonia is the opposite. Time. It just dilates. A simple task like washing dishes feels like an eternity because there is no dopamine reward loop keeping you engaged. You're just counting seconds. It is an excruciating kind of slowness.
That sounds exhausting. And on top of that, you've got what the sources call the distorted mirror.
Right.
We all compare ourselves to others, thanks to social media, but this is something darker than just jealousy.
It is social comparison weaponized against yourself. It isn't just, oh, that person is fitter than me. It is a deep, corrosive belief that you're a fundamental failure as a human being compared to everyone else. You see people living their lives, laughing, working, and your brain tells you, they have the code, they have the instruction manual. I don't. And it's my fault.
Which naturally leads people to look for an escape hatch, and the sources point out this fascinating duality with the most basic things. Sleep and food. It seems like depression loves extremes.
It's the pendulum swing. Take sleep. You might sleep 14 hours a day. That's hypersomnia, because sleep is the only time you don't have to exist in the dystopia. It's a literal escape. Or you have insomnia, because the anxiety and the darkness just keep the brain revving all night. You're exhausted but wired.
And it's the same with food.
Same swing. You either overeat to numb the feelings, you're seeking that temporary serotonin hit from sugar and fat, or food becomes completely unappetizing. You look at a sandwich and it might as well be cardboard. It's that anhedonia again.
Okay, so we've painted the picture of the landscape. It's heavy, it's painful, and it's distorted. But I want to pivot to the biology. Because one thing that fascinated me in this deep dive is the idea that our body is like an orchestra.
Or an opera. A very complex opera.
Right, an opera. And if the percussion section is out of tune, the whole production just falls apart. We have to talk about the gut-brain highway. I think a lot of us still think the brain is this isolated fortress in the skull.
We used to think that.
Yeah.
But we were just wrong. The brain and the gut are in constant high-speed communication through the vagus nerve. It's a two-way street. Think of it like a fiber optic cable running from your stomach to your brainstem. So what happens in your stomach, the bacteria, the inflammation, it sends direct signals to your mood regulation centers.
So if the gut is inflamed, the brain is foggy.
Essentially, inflammation is the key word here. We usually think of inflammation like, a swollen knee after a run. But inflammation happens in the brain, and it affects how neurotransmitters, the chemical messengers, are produced and received. If your brain is inflamed, it cannot transmit joy efficiently.
So let's talk about the villains and heroes in this opera. The sources identify a henchman in our biology called oxidative stress. What is that in plain English?
Think of oxidative stress as biological rust. It's a byproduct of living, breathing, stress, pollution, processing junk food. These volatile molecules, they're called free radicals. They bounce around and damage cells. They hinder the body's ability to repair itself. Over time, high oxidative stress can actually change brain structure. It's a chaotic element that just degrades the machinery.
Sam, the superhero.
Antioxidants, they're the cleanup crew. They neutralize that henchman by stabilizing those free radicals. And where do you find them?
In the vibrant stuffed berries, leafy greens, beets, dark chocolate. They restore the balance.
So if we want to help the superhero, we have to look at what we're feeding the orchestra. We have a literal inflammatory list here. And I have to say, looking at this list, it looks like the standard modern diet.
It unfortunately does. Number one on the hit list, fast food.
The fried stuff.
The fried processed stuff. It's high in trans fats and omega-6 fatty acids, which basically trigger an immune response. Your body sees that burger and fries and treats it almost like a bacterial invader. It ramps up inflammation.
Which fuels the rust. Exactly. Then you have sugar and artificial sweeteners.
This one scared me a bit. The data on artificial sweeteners, I always thought, hey, 0 calories, free pass.
It is concerning. We think it's a loophole. But in lab mice, some sweeteners can be more addictive than cocaine. But even beyond addiction, they can act as neurological disruptors. In some people, they can produce inflammation or even trigger seizures. You're tricking the body, and the body retaliates.
And real sugar isn't much better, is it? It puts you on that roller coaster, the glycemic index spike and crash.
Which mimics a mood crash. If you eat a donut, your blood sugar spikes, you feel great for 20 minutes. Then insulin floods in, blood sugar crashes, and you feel irritable, tired, and depressed. If you ride that roller coaster all day, your mood never has a chance to stabilize.
Then we have salt and alcohol. Alcohol is the big one people often misunderstand, right? Because it feels like it helps in the moment. It takes the edge off.
It's the ultimate liar. Alcohol is a central nervous system depressant. It might numb the pain temporarily, but chemically, it actually shrinks brain cells. It disconnects thoughts from actions. It is literally pouring gasoline on the fire of depression long term. You are borrowing happiness from tomorrow at a very, very high interest rate.
Okay, so that's the don't list. But let's flip it. What are the building blocks we need to repair the machine? If I'm feeling that heavy coat, what should I be putting on my fork?
We need to fight the inflammation.
Right.
First, healthy fats.
Yeah.
Your brain is mostly fat. It needs omega-3 salmon, walnuts, tuna to keep the cell membranes fluid and communicating properly. Then you need the serotonin factories.
Serotonin is the happy hormone.
It's the stabilizer. But your body can't just wish it into existence. It needs ingredients. Specifically, vitamin B12 and folic acid, that's vitamin B9. You get these from things like poached eggs, cheese, bananas. If you don't have the raw materials, the factory just shuts down.
I learned something new about bread today from the notes. The anatomy of a grain.
It's simple, but it's so crucial. A whole grain has three parts: the hull, the bran, and the germ. The bran is where the B vitamins live. When we process it into white bread, we strip the bran. We're stripping out the medicine. That's why whole grains, quinoa, brown rice are so protective. They keep the serotonin factory supplied.
And finally, tryptophan, which I always just associate with the post-Thanksgiving nap.
It's an amino acid. It is the direct precursor to serotonin. Turkey, tofu, quinoa, it's just basic chemistry. You have to eat the blocks to build the house.
But here's the catch, and I have to play devil's advocate here. When you are in the depths of that heavy coat, the idea of grilling salmon or cooking quinoa feels impossible. Our protagonist, the guy with no smiles, I doubt he had the energy to poach an egg. You just want the pizza because it's easy.
You are absolutely right, and that is why we don't start with change your entire diet. That's a recipe for failure. We start with additions. Can you just add a handful of walnuts? Can you switch the white toast to whole wheat? Small pivots. You aren't trying to become a chef. You're trying to get just enough medicine into the system to restart the engine.
So we're feeding the body right. Now we have to look at the software, the mind. Because our protagonist, his problem wasn't just his diet. His mind was playing reruns of his worst hits.
Rumination. It's a downward spiral. You replay a negative experience over and over again, engraving it into your neural pathways like a canyon. And the deeper the canyon, the harder it is to get out.
So how do we stop the tape? The sources suggest gratitude, and I have to be honest, every time I hear gratitude journal, I roll my eyes a little. It sounds like something on a decorative pillow. Live, laugh, love. It feels trivial when you're in real pain.
I get that. It feels trite. It feels soft. But let's look at the mechanism, not the marketing.
Yeah.
The neuroscience is actually fascinating. You cannot ruminate on fear and feel active gratitude at the same time. The brain really struggles to hold both states. It's a circuit breaker.
So it's not about pretending everything is perfect.
Not at all. It's about forcing a gear shift. The exercise is immediate. Stop. Pause. Write down 3 things you are grateful for right now. Not big things like world peace. Small things. The coffee is warm. The sun is out. My dog is sleeping. It forces the brain to scan the environment for positives, which physically interrupts the rumination loop. It stops the digging of that canyon.
There's also this tool called the thought log. It sounds a bit like homework, but the premise is about challenging those lies the brain tells us.
It's cognitive behavioral therapy 101. Let's say your brain tells you, I am unlovable. That's a classic distortion called overgeneralization.
Okay, so how do I log that? Walk me through it like I'm 5.
You act like a detective in your own life, or maybe a lawyer in a courtroom. You write the situation, you write the feeling, and then you ask, is there any evidence that this isn't true?
You put the thought on trial.
Exactly. You force the emotional brain to submit to the rational brain. I feel unlovable. Objection. My friend called me yesterday. My mom sent me a birthday card. You write a helpful alternative thought. It's not about lying to yourself. It's about correcting the distortion. It's about looking at the facts, not the feelings.
And this ties into the behavioral theory of depression. The idea that depression leads to inaction, and inaction fuels more depression. It's a loop.
The cycle of lethargy. You don't do anything because you feel bad, and you feel bad because you haven't done anything. To break it, we need to build a sense of mastery.
This is where we talk about the massive, scary project.
Right. If you look at a huge project like Fix My Life or even write a thesis, you will freeze. The strategy is to break it down until the step is so small you literally cannot fail.
Like, ridiculously small.
Absurdly small. Step 1 isn't write the paper. Step 1 is open the laptop. That's it. If you open the laptop, you win.
And when you do that, you get a little hit of dopamine.
You get a sense of mastery. Momentum is built on tiny wins, not giant leaps. You stack enough tiny wins and suddenly you're moving.
But you also need rewards, and not just the junk food kind.
Right. We need scheduled, pleasant activities. It sounds clinical, but if you're depressed, you won't naturally drift toward fun. Your guidance system is offline. You have to schedule it like a dentist appointment. Hobbies, time with loved ones, things that provide meaningful engagement.
Speaking of hobbies, let's talk about the art of living, because our protagonist mentioned video games, and I think a lot of us relate to that, the digital escape. He spent years just gaming.
It's a double-edged sword. He called it a time capsule of stress relief. And that's valid. Distraction can be a healthy coping mechanism. We all need a break. But there is a line where distraction becomes escapism. If you are in the game to avoid making real changes in your life, if the game is the only place you feel mastery, it becomes a trap. It just keeps you in the heavy coat.
So what's the alternative? He talked about eventually finding art, drawing, writing, making films about grief.
Expression as release.
Yeah.
When you externalize the internal weight, put it on paper, on a canvas, even in a journal, you change your relationship to it. It becomes an object outside of you. He described it as a semi-permanent change in mental state. You aren't carrying it alone anymore. The art is carrying it too.
And if you aren't an artist, if you can't draw a stick figure,
Then you move, the body in motion. Yoga is described as meditation in motion. It forces introspection, or just walking.
walking seems too simple to be a cure.
It's not a cure, it's a reset. The simple act of bilateral movement, left foot, right foot, while you're scanning the horizon, actually quiets the amygdala, the fear center. It resets the nervous system. It connects you back to the world behind that glass wall.
And we can't forget the social piece. Humans are social animals.
Even when the instinct is to isolate. Remember our friends smiling and zero photos. The remedy is connection. We need a community to reflect our humanity back to us. Even if it's just a text message, isolation feeds the distortion. Connection breaks it.
So we've covered a lot. The biology, the diet, the thought logs, the lifestyle. It feels like a lot of tools. But I want to end on the philosophy of this, because our source used a driving metaphor that I found really empowering for anyone feeling overwhelmed by all this.
The steering wheel.
Yeah, tell us about that.
The idea is that you don't need complete control immediately. You don't need to be driving like a Formula One racer. When you're depressed, the car is skidding. The goal isn't perfect driving. The goal is just to pull the wheel in the right direction every time you can get your hands on it.
Sometimes your hands slip, sometimes the car skids anyway.
Exactly. But you keep reaching for the wheel.
Yeah.
You eat the walnuts. You open the laptop. You pull the wheel. And that connects to the zigzag graph. We often think recovery should be a straight line up. I feel bad today. I should feel better tomorrow.
But the reality is more like the stock market.
It's volatile.
Yeah.
You have ups and downs. But if you zoom out, the trend line is moving up. Rock bottom becomes a little higher than it was before. Good days become actual good days, not just not bad days.
I love that distinction from the notes. Overcome versus overcame.
It's a crucial grammatical shift. Overcame implies it's done. Past tense, I fixed it. But depression is rarely fixed like a broken bone. Overcome is a process. It's present tense. It is a pattern of habits, not a single victory. You don't fix the landscape. You learn to navigate it. You learn where the potholes are.
It reminds me of the thought log again. It's not a one-time pill. It's a tool you keep in your pocket.
It is. And actually, if we want to leave the listener with something to do right now, something to pull the wheel, it's that. I want you to identify one fact your brain is telling you about yourself right now. I'm lazy. I'm broken. I'm behind in life.
The heavy stuff.
The heavy stuff. Now, just for a moment, treat it like a hypothesis, not a fact. Look for the evidence against it. Just one piece of evidence. I'm lazy. Well, I went to work today. I'm unlovable. My sister called me.
Find the crack in the wall.
Exactly. Find the crack. That is the first step in rewiring the machine.
Pulling the wheel just a little bit to the right.
Precisely.
That's all we have for this deep dive. Take care of your orchestra, watch out for the rust, and keep reaching for that wheel. We'll see you next time.